What's up, Raptors fans? Welcome to the Warriors Report. I have some special guests with me from To The Point. Make sure to subscribe to their channel, guys. They post some awesome Raptors content. I'll leave the description below, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wherever you are, whatever time it is for you right now, just know that you are locked in on the Warriors Report with the one and only Proud Warriors. I myself, King Hussein, you guys can find me on all social media platforms under that handle. You guys know my man right there, my co-host right there, my boy, Simon Broder, at Dougie J's on Twitter. Skip?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You can find me on Twitter. You can find, obviously, I have some books out on Amazon. We will send those links as well, but mainly just To The Point on YouTube, on Facebook. I'm Simon Broder, and Dougie J's on Twitter.
Proud, before we get started,
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
Thank you so much. We are so blessed and so humbled to be on the one and only Warriors Report, and we appreciate it very much, my man. Thank you.
Thank you for coming here. Thank you for coming here. I really do appreciate you guys being here. All right, guys, so let's get right into the topic, which is there's been a lot of talk about Pascal Siakam coming back, and a lot of fans have said that he is going to ruin the chemistry. Now, obviously, the Raptors have struggled a little bit, and the record for the Raptors is 0-3. Now, I'm obviously going to give you my take. I want to let you guys take into it. I want to touch a little bit upon some other things as well, but I want to ask you guys. I'll let you guys take it, and then you guys let me know what you think of the lineup so far.
Skip?
With Pascal. So I think the question with Pascal here is he's absolutely a very good player. I don't think there's any question that he's a very good player. The question is, how can he be a good player within this roster, within this lineup? How can he improve the Raptors' ceiling from where it is, from what we've seen? So previously, we saw them really go at it on defense, really like hustle hard, really win all the hustle stats, and they were beating teams that way. They were just outworking teams. That's absolutely how they have to play. And the question is, how do you integrate Pascal into that type of lineup, roster, rotation? And in theory, it should be totally doable because Pascal, you remember when this guy came into the league, that was exactly the type of player he was. He was a guy who ran hard on defense. He was a guy who ran the floor. He should be the perfect fit for this team in theory. But what's happened is he's gotten a little bit older. He's changed his game up a little bit. He's gotten a little bit of, I guess you could say, all-star syndrome, where it's like, I don't want to say ego, but ego is a huge factor in terms of what we're talking about here. How do you play within the system without having that massive ego and reintegrate yourself properly into what the type of player that this team needs to succeed? So that's what I think they need. And I think Pascal is totally capable of doing that if he can just sort of set his ego aside and accept and go back to being the guy he was 3-4 years ago, not in terms of his actual playing style, just the way that he integrates with the team, the way that he runs the floor with the team. Now, that said, I think there are some major lineup concerns regarding this whole OG Pascal and Scottie front court.
Scottie!
The question is, like, so you're playing three big jumbo forwards at once. And in theory, one of these guys is going to be playing the center spot. But what we've seen the past few games is that isn't really going to work over the long term. I think that the way that this roster is probably best constructed is to have those three guys play the 2, 3, and 4 spots and have a real point guard and a real center bookending them. And then at that point, the roster can be really, really dynamic. That said, even in that structure, unless your center is a bang-up three-point shooter, you're going to struggle with spacing a lot. The other option would be to just go even smaller and have another guard next to Van Vliet, which is kind of what we're seeing with Trent. But I think the high upside version of this team has to have those three guys on the floor together, but it has to have there's a piece missing to this puzzle. And whether that's a playmaker, whether that's a center who can just rebound, set picks, and guard some big guys. I mean, we saw Isaiah Stewart go off against the Raptors. Like, come on, like these guys. There's a hole at the center spot, and I think once that is addressed, we'll see how OG, Scottie, and Pascal work together much more dynamically.
I kind of agree with you, but kind of disagree with you, Skip. From what I noticed from Pascal coming back, Now that they're 0-3, they have 3 losses. He's kind of slowed down the ball, like you've alluded to on one of our episodes about Fred VanVleet slowing down the ball in the offense, not letting the young kids run around. And like Pascal, yeah, his first game back, he was okay on the box score. But if you watch the game, you know otherwise, right? The next game, like, come on, 8 points? Seriously, right? He could have done a lot better.
He had a bad game that game.
Hey, man, the last game he got back into the groove, so I'm not going to hate on the guy. You know, he kind of got back into it, right? But again, like Prob asked about the fit into the rotation, and like you were alluded to earlier. Now, and you alluded to with Scottie Barnes. Now, Scottie, I got to say this. Shout out to our boy, Robert Mishovich. Okay. Scottie's shot attempts have gone down since Pascal came back. I've noticed the guys not running around as much. You know, Gary Trent, he's going to put up his shots because every time he gets the ball, he's thinking shoot first, right? So I do see there is a way to fit Pascal back into the system. Maybe it's going to take a little while for him to get acclimated. And if Freddie VanVleet can actually push the ball quickly as well, and the 2 veterans can actually do that instead of, like you said, Skip, ego, right, might get in the way, like when he cussed off the coaches for restricting his time. Like he said, give me the effing minutes, right, to paraphrase. But ego might step in, and that might be a deterrent to the team. And that's just personally how I feel about this. I think it can work. There's a positive note out there, Raptors fans. Let's not get all negative and say trade him and blow up everything. But that's how I feel.
Right. All right, guys. So you guys made some really good points here. Now, Skip, you made some really good points. I'm going to agree with you because I actually had dropped a video a few days ago. I believe it was 3 days ago. And I talked a little bit about how this lineup is not working because, and I'll still say it, I think there's too many players in this lineup that need their own shots. And that doesn't necessarily work when you have 5 players that all want the ball. You need to have some roles. And I use this as an example, I'll use it again. Like we saw in the championship run, you had Marc Gasol who knew his role and he knew he's going to take maybe 3-4 shots, maybe 5-6 shots. He wasn't necessarily that player that wanted the ball in his hands. You had those Danny Greens as well who didn't, he sacrificed shots so other main guys could get more shots. And I think that's the problem, the issue. And Skip, like you said, I really do believe that we need to put a center with this lineup. Now, that's the difficult part. Who do you take out? But we'll talk about that afterwards. But it's difficult because you can't put Pascal Siakam at the center position. We've seen it just doesn't work. Teams collapse our defenses and they attack the paint and then everyone's scrambling everywhere. So as great as this idea is a positionless basketball. I love it. It's not always going to work. And I definitely believe we need a center out there to anchor that defense, to be that paint presence. And I said it and I'll say it again. I really do think that's the big issue with this lineup. And I also do believe, again, not to say that players in our lineup are selfish. OG can take a step back. Gary Trent could take a step back. We've seen him take less shots than we have last season. He was shooting like he's shooting in practice last season. So we're seeing him take a little bit of a step back where he's not shooting freely as he was last season. If that's the point I'm trying to make, is he's taking a little bit step back. He realizes his role is to be behind guys like Pascal and Fred. And Skip, as much as I love Pascal, I have to agree there. I think it is that point of trying to prove to other players that, look, I'm the main guy. I think Pascal needs to realize that there's better talent around him this year than last season, and there's a lot more players that can get you baskets. And that's what I see the big issue with Pascal is. I think, no, it's ironic I say this because I believe he had around 7 assists last against the Pistons, but he does need to play off ball when Fred VanVleet gets back as well. I think they need to share the ball a lot more. So that's the big issue I'm seeing here with Pascal Siakam being back in the lineup.
Yeah, I think so. I lost my train of thought there.
Better hop back on that via rail.
Yeah, so I think Pascal, he's totally capable of doing all these things, and all these guys are totally capable of doing all these things. But it's just about this team is trying to find their balance right now. They're trying to figure out that their sea legs, their pecking order. That's exactly the words I was trying to say when I lost my train of thought. They're trying to figure out their pecking order. They're just a little lost right now, and everyone's kind of like, hey, maybe I'm this guy. Hey, maybe I'm this guy. Like, and having that vary from game to game, like that can work. You do want one guy to step up one night and another guy to step up the next night. But what happens is there's kind of just this seesaw effect going on where it's like, oh, we're trying to turn OG into a star. Oh, we're trying to turn Scottie into a star. Oh, we're trying to turn Fred VanVleet into an all-star. Oh, here's Pascal joining the party. And it gets a little messy, and but I mean, regardless, like against the Pistons, like they just didn't play defense in that game. That's a totally different story. But overall, in terms of how this offense is going to function, they're still trying to find their sea legs. They're still trying to figure out if Fred VanVleet is going to dominate the ball, if Scottie's going to dominate the ball. They're still struggling in a lot of ways, just with their identity. They're like, what is this team? And I think they don't know, and I think we're watching them find out. And that's okay to some extent, but it's what's happening, and that's where we're kind of at with that.
It's like we said, it's a retooling year. Maybe not rebuilding, but retooling, right?
Yeah, absolutely agree. And Brian, I get to touch upon your points as well. You did make some good points. Scottie Barnes, obviously, his touches have gone down a little bit, but that normally does happen, regardless of who you get back. If you're getting one of your main guys back, it doesn't matter. Those shots for other players are going to decrease a little bit. Now, the one example, I actually wanted to use this as well. Again, Skip, how you talked about the pecking order. I think some of the similarities I'm seeing between this team, and you obviously see the talent is there, but I've used this in the past. The Celtics, they had Kemba Walker, they had Jaylen Brown, they had Jason Tatum, they had Gordon Hayward. They had four guys on the offensive side that all wanted the ball, and it led to a lot of inconsistent play between those four players, maybe outside of Jason Tatum, because Jason Tatum is, a really solid player, to say the least. But between the other three guys, there was a lot of inconsistency. You didn't know who's going to take 20 shots. You didn't know who's going to take 10 shots. So I think that is the big issue I'm seeing with the Raptors currently. And I do want to move a little bit into a difficult question for you guys. Now, if we do change the lineup, Brian, I'll ask you first. Who goes to the bench? Because, Skip, you said we should play OG, Scottie, and Pascal as a 2, 3, and 4 and have a center. So, Brian, I'll pass that question to you. Who goes to the bench if we move the lineup? Change the lineup.
From the current starting lineup, I will put Gary Trent there.
You'd put Gary Trent on the bench.
Yeah. But if I did want to bolster that bench and make that a real bench mob, I hate to say it, but I would probably put Scottie there. Mm-hmm. Because his court vision, it's unbelievable. Like his awareness. It's like, I don't know if you remember playing the EA Sports games like NHL 95 or whatever. When you build your player, you put awareness. And once you put them in a 99,
I'm not that old, Brian. Maybe 2005.
Brian's getting up there.
But it's like that. Like his awareness, his vision, his sight. Okay, I understand the Raps have Siakam, VanVleet. They got to pay them the big bucks, right? So they have to take more of the minutes and more of the court time, more of the possessions, more of the touches. I get that. You got a young rookie in Scottie Barnes, which, come on, I think we all can agree who is the future of the Toronto Raptors. Mm-hmm. Okay, let him and Boucher run that bench. That bench will be unstoppable in the playoffs. With them, Delano, Malachi, Utah.
Well,
oh my goodness.
Nurse doesn't really seem to like Malachi at the moment, but we'll see as the season progresses.
Eric Kareen suggested the exact same thing you just said, Scottie to the bench, and he got roasted on Twitter. And let me just say, there's no chance Scottie's going to the bench. The way that he's playing, unless he hits a wall, I think unless something drastically goes wrong, but I think there's no way you can put him on the bench now.
To solidify that question that you asked, Gary Trent.
I think I completely agree with you, Gary Trent. And it's not just about who goes to the bench. It's the reason is this. If this Raptors team, say 2 years down the line, is going to be a contender, a serious playoff team, mm-hmm. with all of the same current pieces in place for the most part, maybe you bring in one more piece. What is Gary Trent on that team? You know what he is? He's Jordan Clarkson. He's Jamal Crawford. He's that microwave off the bench, and he's going to have to learn how to do that off the bench. I know he likes to thrive. He always thrives when he starts. Like he likes to be a starter, but if he's going to be this guy on a team that is contending, and I don't know if it's going to be with the Raptors because he's only on a 2-year contract, but if he's here when the going gets tough, he's got to be that guy who comes in off the bench. And I think it's really important for him to get those reps at some point. And yeah, bring in a center, or hell, like start Birch for now until you figure out the center position long term, and bring Gary Trent off the bench and have him learn how to be this microwave instant offense guy, which would be awesome, I think. Anyway, that's
Wow,
my
we didn't even
2
mention
cents.
Precious yet. Okay.
All right.
Precious is 6 feet underground right now.
So you guys made some good points, Brian. You made a good point, but then you changed it and you said Gary Trent Jr. Now I'm gonna get a lot of hate. I've said this before and I'll say it again. And I get the point about Scottie Barnes, guys. I love Scottie Barnes. He's clearly a very, very talented player and a top rookie in this very stacked draft class. But the reason I said this, and I'll say it again, Gary Trent, I know everyone talks about putting Gary Trent on the bench, but you need a three-point shooter in your starting lineup because you put Gary Trent on the bench. Let's use this as an example. Your center is going to be Kem Birch. You got Pascal, who can shoot threes, but that's not his strength. We know that. And then Scottie Barnes, who's shooting something like 19%. I don't have the stat with me, but he's not shooting obviously very great from the three-point line. So you're essentially going to have two players that can't
shooting
shoot
20%.
There you go. He's shooting 20%. So you essentially have two guys in your starting lineup that can't shoot the three. And we know Pascal is going to drive to the basket, and then defenses are going to collapse. And then you're forced to have Kem Birch or Scottie Barnes shoot. So I don't necessarily know how that matchup is going to work. Again, don't take this the wrong way. Scottie Barnes is the future of the Raptors. But the reason, Brian, for the exact same reasons that you mentioned.
But what about OG taking that shot?
That's a possibility, but those two players are going to be covered. We know Fred and OG will be covered.
I 100% agree with that being the problem with that lineup.
Okay, Prob, what else? What else, man? What else did you have to throw at me?
And the fact that when you put Gary Trent on the bench, I mean, his statistics are terrible. He's averaging, like 6 points last season when we had him off the bench with terrible shooting. Like, I believe it was like between 35 and 40% field goal percentage. That doesn't necessarily, he's not going to be a microwave off the bench. He's one of those players like Norman Powell. Although Norman came into his own last season, we saw the difference between when you put him on the bench and when you had him starting. So I think that's the only reason I wouldn't put Gary Trent on the bench. If he could give you baskets, absolutely. But I think the spacing becomes an issue if you leave Scottie Barnes in there. And for the exact same reasons, Brian, that you touched upon, let him run that second unit. We know how Nick Nurse likes to use his bench. He's going to have Scottie Barnes still, even if he plays off the bench. I know people think this is a negative when you put a talented player like Scottie on the bench, but he's still going to be playing 30-plus minutes. We know Nick Nurse's rotations are tight, and he only likes to play 7-8 guys daily on a night-to-night basis. So Scottie Barnes, let him run that second unit. Put Pascal on the bench, bring Scottie in, let him play with the starters as well. You can have a lot of different matchups throughout the game. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to not play with the starters. You know, a lot of people say that, well, he's going to get used to playing with these starters because that's the future, but you can still have him come off the bench. Let him run that second unit. He's a solid player. He's got court vision, as you touched upon, and I think he'll excel. He'll have more touches, even if he's playing off the bench, than he would as a starter, I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, I get the reasons why you do it, but I just don't think that's how you want to build this team going forward. I think the idea for this team in the future is going to be Scottie as the primary featured player on the team, and I think he's learning that role right now. And I think there's no reason to shuffle him off to bench to learning on the bench like that. That's a demotion, and he doesn't deserve it. But also, like, he needs to learn how to play against top players. He needs to learn how to lead a team, lead an offense, and I think that's where he's going to get to. And going back to your other point about the spacing, I absolutely agree that that's an issue with this roster. But that's just an issue with this roster, like. That is the thing they signed up for when they said we're going to go with jumbo positionless forwards. So you don't have a lot of spacing, and if you add a center to that unit, you're going to be really clogged in the paint, and you only have two real 3-point threats, which is not ideal. But they're going to have to figure out a way to make it work. Whether it's Kem Birch making more threes, whether it's Pascal, I mean, he's had a lot of time to work on his shot, so we'll see. Maybe he's back to being a 35% 3-point shooter again. But there's only one way to find out. Okay.
Prob?
Well, Skip, you do make some good points. But the thing is, I think you talked about how you need to play Scottie Barnes against the top guys, and I'll go back on this again. You can still play him against the top guys. Play Gary Trent 5 minutes into the game and switch the lineups. You can always just have him come into the game. He's going to have fresh. not that he's going to be tired. He's obviously 19, 20-year-old. He's going to have fresh legs regardless. But have him
He
come
says
in.
young legs.
There you go, young legs. He's
Okay.
going to have young legs regardless, and you can have him, 7 minutes into the game, or I should say, 5 minutes into the game, at the 7-minute mark in the first quarter, bring him in and have him guard the top guys. Those guys are going to get fatigued, and you got Scottie with his energy coming in, playing defense and running the floor. I think that's still going to work out.
Yeah. So bottom line, we talk about starting lineup, but I think we're really talking about closing lineup. Like realistically, I think if you were to do the thing you suggest, like you could argue for that for sure. Just like, yeah, maybe Gary Trent is more comfortable starting, yada, yada, yada. But who's out there last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter is the real question.
So that's your question for me. Are you asking
well,
me?
No,
that?
I'm just saying, like, that's the question.
I think
like,
that is a question for you.
If my lineup having a center and a point guard and the 3 forwards is my closing lineup, then I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that being. I'm fine with that being the closing lineup, even if it's not the starting lineup. Is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Prop,
no.
Now I want to hear what prop lineup is.
I think then when you put the closing line, then you have to put Pascal, Scottie, Gary, OG, and Fred VanVleet out there, because most talented players. You have to, and you can't put Kem Birch out there. He's not making threes if you need to. I know, of course, the big question is about Scottie Barnes, but I think Scottie Barnes' IQ level is high enough to know that he'll work around Pascal. If he needs to, and towards the closing end of the game. You can kind of still function at the free throw line. Have him make cuts while Pascal is dribbling the ball and find the open man. So I don't think that necessarily is a big problem closing the lineup. It's just more starting the lineup just to get Scottie Barnes a few more touches and let him run the second unit, or if he comes in with the starters, let him run the ball a little bit more.
Okay, Prop. I guess we're pretty good for time, but before we go, I have a question for you.
Absolutely.
I have a question for you.
You're gonna put me on the spot. Let's hear it.
Yep. Based on everything we just said, I think we all had some pretty good points there. Does this make Pascal expendable for the Raptors?
I knew you were going to throw a tough question at me. I knew it.
That's a whole show in its own. Like,
yeah, no kidding, Brian. Wow. No, I still don't think so. He's
Okay.
I did a video with Robert, and I have to yet to release it on YouTube, but I think Pascal is the perfect number 2 option. I don't think he's a number 1 option if you're expecting him to lead us to the championship. We're obviously all hoping that OG really progresses into that in the coming years. He's obviously showed a lot this season. And of course, you're expecting big things from Scottie Barnes in the future as well. So I think you keep Pascal. He's a proven number 2 guy on the championship roster. So I'll pass the question to you guys as well. I mean, you're putting me on the spot. I got to ask you as well. What do you think about that? So do you think?
I think it depends on your definition of expendable. I think the short answer is no. The long answer is I'm not going to go deep. If you don't think that 3-man unit of OG, Scottie, and Pascal is going to work long term, then you answer the phone when someone calls. But it's got to be a really good package. It's got to be the right package. You're not going around shopping him. It's like if someone comes to you and says, "We want Pascal for such and such and such," like you might be listening and saying, "All right, what's your best offer?"
Weird to say, but I kind of agree with you on that one. Like, I'm kind of double-sided on this one. I think with the young core coming up, that he can be expendable, right? I'm not jumping ship, and I'm not panicking, even though they're 0-3 with them. Okay, it kind of does point that way, but you're not going to actively shop them, right? So I agree with both of you guys on this one. I get that. Good answers, man. I do get it. Like, if you're going to get like a center and maybe a good pick, maybe a center, a backup guard, something. You know what I mean?
It's got to be a great center, though. It's got to be.
That's what I was going to say.
It has to be a body.
No, it has to be a really good center we're acquiring back. So,
Rudy Gobert.
Rudy Gobert for Pascal Siakam, Brian. I was ready to end this video.
Utah's never going there.
Come on, no way that trade is happening. First of all, Raptors say no.
Maybe Ayton. I don't know. There's a lot of guys out there, like even Bam on Miami. There's a lot of bigs that the Raps could use that would
never going to happen. System. Never going to happen.
I know it's not going to happen. This is all hypothetical. None of us are GMs. What? Bobby, Masai, and Nick Nurse? Yeah, we ain't them. So it ain't going to happen. But it's just something for us as, well, you guys as Raptors fans, and me following them to watch and just see how it plays out, see how it all unfolds, right?
Absolutely. All right, guys. Any last points before we end the video here?
Skip.
I mean, I could go more, but like, I think I hit most of my main points. Just, yeah, leave some comments. Let us know what you think.
Yes. Rob, thank you for having myself and Skip on the show. We appreciate it. From the T-Dot to the Van City, baby. We keep it all up here in the country, right? You got that banner back there. You know how it is, man. We all got nothing but love for this team and seeing how they progress and enjoying this young core. And it's great to talk basketball with you. We really appreciate it. You guys out there, if you haven't already, go click subscribe on the Warriors Report. You know I did. And then go down there and click subscribe until the point. Because you know I did too. Okay? We really appreciate it. Despite the time difference, man, this has been nothing but a pleasure. Okay? We really appreciate it on behalf of myself and Skip. Okay, man?
Absolutely.
We wish you nothing but the best. We hope your show grows into the millions of subscribers, millions of views. We all as Canadians got to stick together. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys again. You guys made some excellent points. It was a pleasure talking basketball with you guys. It's always fun watching your videos. So again, guys, make sure to hit subscribe to my channel. I'll leave the link below for To The Point. Make sure to go over to their channel. They post some amazing Raptors content. So make sure to subscribe to their channel as well. And that will be it for this video, guys. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, go for it.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and
Peace.
Peace.